Welcome, everybody, to the January 16th Administrative Services Committee meeting. Our first order here is approval of the minutes from 12/11/23.
Make a motion to approve.
Motion,
I'll second that.
seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, carried. Privilege of the floor. Is there anyone here to speak to us from the privilege of the floor? Seeing no one, we will close the privilege of the floor. Our first item is a tabled motion. Apologize to the Healthy Community Alliance and the Strong Starts Coalition. Does anybody have anything to say about this?
I do. I'm gonna continue. I'm not gonna take it off the table, so it'll continue to be tabled. But I would like to say that I apologize to the Strong Starts Coalition, basically because I think that the Strong Starts Coalition is completely separate from the county, and it has done a lot of good work. And I just wanted to extend my apology to the Healthy Communities Alliance and Strong Starts. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. So is there a motion to take the tabled motion off the table? Hearing none? Pardon me?
I would like to ask a question.
Okay.
Oh, okay, so take the tabled motion off the table. Yeah, okay. Keep going, sorry.
We're going to keep it tabled.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, local law intro 124, local law amending local law 1322, providing for a management salary plan for the county officers and employees.
Good evening. Dr. Mike Falk, County's Chief Medical Officer. So with the restructuring of Health and Human Services and essentially the demerger of now creating the Health Department being a standalone department, we realized quite some time ago that we have a title within the Health Department, basically titled Assistant to the Commissioner for Social Services. We are basically looking to retitle that position so that it is more in line with the actual position and the actual duties that that individual is doing. So it is not an additional position. We would not be backfilling the assistant to the Commissioner for Social Services position. The title of the position is Administrative Coordinator. It's a management level position, basically responsible for administrative and supervisory position to assist the Chief Medical Officer and the Public Health Director with the effective implementation and coordination of assigned centralized functions for the Health Department. The salary range remains the same, and this is all within our budget for 2024. Yeah.
Can you explain what that position does?
Sure. And I'm going to refer basically right to the position duty statement. Really assist the director in the formulation of departmental procedures and regulations, prepares and directs the development and maintenance of various departmental records and reports, such as payroll, personnel records, operations reports, ensures internal organizational communication protocols and initiatives to foster employee morale, working on core promotional and educational messaging, fostering positive and productive community relations, focusing on communication, marketing strategies, core messaging related to crisis and emergency risk communication, supervises support staff who serve as liaisons with Human Services, Training and Development, Public Information Officer, and Finance, collects and collates information for the department's annual budget and annual report, coordination of operational issues for various health divisions. There's a lot of different stuff. It's a a plate that is very full for this individual. But we felt it wasn't appropriate to keep that person in a title of Assistant to Commissioner for Social Services, since that person is within the Health Department, so.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that's the main difference.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there's no, yeah, you've already said it, the salary remains the same, everything's in the budget.
Yeah, the management salary range is that level is not changing,
Mm-hmm.
and everything's within 2024's budget, so.
Okay, thank you.
So it's a net zero in regards to additional personnel. We're not adding on a new position, just retitling.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none? Thank you, Dr. Paul.
Thank you. Yep.
All right, our next item is local law intro 224, local law amending local law 1322, providing for a management salary plan for county officers and employees.
Good evening, Patrick Slagle, County Attorney. So before you, we have a proposed local law looking to create the position of Deputy Compliance Officer. Late last year, our compliance officer did retire. This is a mandated position, and we've had quite the difficulty time trying to recruit a compliance officer. We've posted the position. There's been about 60 candidates to date. 13 have been contacted to schedule a phone interview. Only 9 have actually responded. 7 followed through, although through various ways. 3 have proceeded to schedule a face-to-face interview. 4 did not respond to the request to be interviewed. I think we've only actually had 2 follow through with on-site interviews, and one of them actually did not show up. Not sure if it's because of the market, but we're just not finding a qualified compliance officer to handle all the issues that compliance officer needs to handle. Compliance generally deals with a lot of Medicare, Medicaid billing, also with HIPAA violations, if there's breaches, things of that nature. So it's a mandated position that we have. As of right now, there is a compliance committee that's acting. I actually sit on that committee as well, and our own HR director is acting in a temporary capacity as the compliance officer to fulfill those mandated duties. Looking at what we can do in the future to obviously compensate the individual or anyone who would take on this role is the creation of this deputy compliance officer position. And we've done this before. We actually currently have it as a deputy county executive position, where it's basically an add-on title where a department head actually receives additional compensation to act in the duty as a deputy county executive. This would follow that same kind of format where we'd have a deputy compliance officer. They'd receive a stipend. Flip to the page of anywhere between $5,000 to $92,778, and that's just the scale right now of where the compliance officer would be paid. So we'd have a deputy compliance officer, and depending if they're acting with a compliance officer, they'd probably be lower on that stipend scale. If the compliance officer retires, resigns, kind of like where now, that compliance officer would move up a little bit more because he'd be handling more responsibilities, more issues. So this is the way that we can not only compensate an individual who's actually taking on those duties right now, but also in the future better plan for succession, so that when there's a retirement or, again, resignation or someone moves on, we're not scrambling like we had to right now. We could have a deputy compliance officer in place, and we'll just adjust their stipend based on the type of work product or work they're taking on.
So
Yeah.
this,
So sorry, yeah, go ahead.
so this is a new position, you said?
This would be a new position, correct?
Okay.
Currently, right now, again, there's no compliance officer, so there's a savings there. Basically, the funds that would be paid to compliance officer, some of that would be going towards a stipend.
Mm-hmm. Have we any sense of how much that's?
I don't know yet. It'd be up to, I'd work with the county executive because he'd be appointing this person, this role, this title, and then we'd be setting that within this range. if you approve this range. I couldn't guess it to what that would be. It'd be towards a higher end, just because they're taking on the full duties of compliance officer. I don't think it'd be the full salary of a compliance officer, but it'd be proportionate to the work that they'd have to do. Because again, this is someone who has a full-time job. It's a department head who's, in addition to the duties they have now, take on these duties. So we're talking about someone who's probably nights and weekends doing compliance work when they can. So we want to compensate them for that additional work. Still a savings to the county because we won't be paying the full amount. And hopefully, the goal is to have a compliance officer, a full-time compliance officer, and then you'd see that stipend adjust down.
Any other questions, comments, concerns?
Yeah, Bob, thank you. Is this, and I apologize that I don't know, but is this done throughout the county? Is a stipend arrangement? Is this the first time? Is this very common?
So there's a couple ways that this can be done. Sometimes you could look to actually hold two titles as an employee, but I mean, obviously you can only be 100%, and so then you're saying you're trying to adjust, well, I work 75% in this capacity, 25% in this capacity, and that gets hard to play with those numbers because, again, you're looking to compensate someone for the work they're doing. This is done, again, as a deputy county executive, and actually I'm one that actually holds that title, so I'm county attorney, but I'm also a deputy county executive, so I hold like a small stipend to perform those duties as a deputy county executive. And so taking that format, this is the kind of the first time we're applying in a different situation here to have, because again, there's not really a need, because again, we have a compliance committee, there's not a need to have a full-time deputy compliance officer, but we recognize the fact that, well, when the compliance officer leaves and you're trying to recruit and you can't find one, it'd be nice if you can activate the stipend to kind of, carry you in between. Again, being such a mandated position, we want to make sure that, there's a HIPAA breach, issues with Medicare, Medicaid billing, compliance issues, that we have a person that all this goes to. And actually, we're required to have a person named that takes these issues on.
So how long can we go without a full-time compliance officer?
That would depend on the individual that will take on this duty, and hopefully we'll have those communications to make sure, obviously, you're always concerned about burnout. You don't want to keep throwing more and more tasks, because it's not just about you can't compensate someone to avoid burnout. So you want to be careful. So the idea is just to continue the recruitment efforts, and then as soon as we get a compliance officer, is to go that route. But again, my suggestion would be to always kind of leave that deputy compliance officer title out there. Obviously with a small stipend as a backup, and to avoid situations like this. Transition planning is always important in organizations, so this is just a step in that
So
path.
Currently, there's someone who's the compliance officer who might retire.
The compliance officer did retire.
And you're serving the role as the deputy?
No, actually the HR director is right now.
Okay.
But there's a compliance committee made up of, I believe I'm on it, I believe Dr. Falk may be on that compliance committee as well. So we work on different compliance issues, policies of that nature, but there has to be a named individual who's the compliance officer. So right now the HR director, amongst her many other duties that she has to perform,
Right.
is performing this vast duty. And so the idea is, I believe, would be naming her as a deputy compliance officer as we continue the search. And again, fortunately, we have not had good results as of yet, but we'll continue to pound the pavement, so to say, to find a compliance officer full-time.
So a stipend will be given to the current deputy, and then when someone's hired, that stipend would probably change the amount?
Would change, correct, would go down. I don't think it'd fully go away. I mean, my suggestion would be it wouldn't fully go away, because again, that deputy compliance officer can continue to assist, obviously continue to train, and over time you'll see it slowly go down to where it's there, like a small stipend to help out. And should there be any issue in the future, then it can easily be kind of reactivated as the work increases.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So and I think you might have answered Why the extreme range?
Again,
Because we don't necessarily know exactly what this person will be taking on or what jobs they'll have. Is it
Yeah.
where you cover ourselves with that range?
basically we took the range of the current, what the current range of the compliance officer gets paid, but we dropped the bottom all the way down to very low stipend.
Okay.
And just left it that way, so it's a range. Again, the idea is that, the deputy compliance officer acting as the compliance officer at this point would be higher on the stipend scale. If you hire a compliance officer, maybe it goes down a little bit while there's training and then continues to go down progressively to where you have the fully trained compliance officer and then you have the deputy compliance officer who gets a minor stipend to continue to be there in the wings waiting to
Okay,
hopefully help out.
understood. Thank you.
Yeah.
All set?
Yep.
Okay, thanks,
All
guys.
right, thank you.
All right. Number 4, proposed resolution, confirm reappointments to the Chautauqua County Ethics Board.
Hello, James Stone from the County Executive's Office. So we have 2 reappointments up for the Ethics Board this month, both agreed to serve another term. That's Dr. John Hamels and Diane Hannum. So they've agreed to serve another full term on the board.
Excellent. Comments, questions, concerns? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, resolution, amend rules and regulations of the Chautauqua County Legislature.
Good evening, Patrick Slagle, County Attorney. Before you is a resolution to amend the current rules and regulations of the county legislature. As you can see by the resolution, it's over the many years as things change, edits are made to the rules, brought by resolution, and then, voted on at the full meeting. What this rule does is it kind of clarifies and I think makes an easier process of sharing of communications with the legislature. The section, really looking at section 1, rule 3, the parts don't go well together. It's unclear really as to how communications are shared with the legislative body. What this rule does, one of the first things it does is ensures that the legislators get all communications that are received are emailed prior to the meeting as opposed to just being given to them at the meeting. So it really made sure that that was listed in there so that you have the correspondence ahead of time. Also changes to make sure that at the meeting, agendas are available for all the public that attend, and they're alerted to the fact that if they want any communications, they can reach out to the clerk's office. Rather than printing out IV communication, having just a stack of papers in the back that aren't used. Save some paper and also continues to list the communications on the agenda. This helps with FOIL requests. Every once in a while the clerk's office is contacted and says, what has been received? And so this would be an easy way for the clerk in my office to look at the agenda to figure out how to respond to FOIL requests. And the last thing that this does is really ensures that the privilege of the floor and the correspondence both are followed by the same rule. Privilege of the floor has a 3 and a 5 minute speaking time limit. During COVID, a lot of things changed. Obviously people had submitted a lot of paperwork and couldn't attend meetings, so asked that things be read. What this does is ensures that if you want to address this body at the privilege of the floor, you can. You have to be here though and address the body. Of course, you can always continue to send communications and they will be received and then obviously dispersed via email to all the legislators ahead of time. And so and then it kind of pulled out one sentence from Rule 3D and made a new rule because it just didn't fit within that paragraph. It sounded better going alone. But you can see below the cross outs what was changed and then what was added to the rules. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. So it looks like what's different is when we used to have like a list of communications, we could ask the clerk to read something.
Mhm.
And now we won't be able to ask the clerk, but someone could actually, I'm just asking for clarification, someone could ask us to read a letter, right? And so my question is, how would that work and when would that happen?
Definitely during the privilege of the floor, obviously a member of the public or a member of the legislative can speak as to any subject in the second privilege of the floor. So you'd be able to, if someone sent you a letter and say, could you please read this during privilege, I can't make it for whatever reason, you'd be able to do that. You'd be subject, though, to the 3 and the 5 minute rule. I think part of the issue was, and I kind of opined that it should already be this way. I'm just making it more clear that someone could technically send like a 20-minute speech and say, please read this, but then that defeats the privilege of the floor rules that are put in place. So this just further clarifies what I think already is in existence, saying that if you want something read, it has to be done during privilege of the floor and subject to the time limits.
Okay.
And again, but then also that addition to make it clear, working with Olivia, and to make sure that all correspondences that are sent in get dispersed to the members ahead of time.
Everyone.
Because again, I think individual community members probably would reach out to you privately, but if something's actually sent to the legislative office, everyone should be aware of that. That's been sent to the legislative office. So this makes it clear that it'll get emailed to you, to your county email address before the meeting.
I know they had a letter that was signed from one community that it was a big packet and lots of signatures, so that whole thing would then be emailed to us.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank
And
you.
I wasn't here obviously when some of these rules were made, but my thought was, prior to the email, upon request, when the clerk could read it or provide it, my thought was that perhaps if a legislator had called the clerk's office and say what was received, well, the clerk can send them out via mail, or she or he would read them to the legislators, potentially. That's kind of what I was going with, because it didn't make sense why this provision would be put in there to avoid the privilege of the floor rules. So just, that was my opinion, but, working with the chairman, I came up with these changes that I think better clarify the process and procedures.
Yeah, sounds great.
Not that I'm looking to get more email, but it will be nice to see what all
Yeah.
the communication is.
Yep.
Sometimes you
yeah.
just see the list and
You don't know what they are.
you don't really know what it is, unless you know what it is.
You're right. You have a lot of documents. I mean, it'll definitely be a lot more information, but it'll be good to have that ahead of time, I think.
Right, yep. All right, any other questions, comments, concerns? Then let's vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you, Patrick,
Thank you.
again. All right, being the chairman, I get to do this. Discussion is on the salary review, and then we have 3 resolutions after that. It looks like everybody's here for all of it anyhow, except for Frank. So we'll do the discussion. I was thinking of reversing it to let anyone leave that needs to leave, but I don't see anybody that's not here, except for Frank. I don't even know Frank, but I know his name's Frank, so. So in that case, we're just gonna stay in the order, and sorry I even said anything. So item number 6, discussion, salary review commission recommendations.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to introduce this discussion, if I could.
That'd be great.
As you are aware, according to county charter, we established a salary review commission, since it had been almost 10 years since the last one. And we were very fortunate to have a wonderful group of people willing to serve on the commission. And the commission was extremely well supported and assisted by our Director of Human Services.
Resources.
Human Resources. Human Resources, sorry. I was too busy thinking about the next statement I was gonna make,
I
but
love it when Pierre makes
So the commission did a terrific job of requesting information, and the Director of Human Resources did a wonderful job of providing information, seeking out information, providing it. Very lively discussions that occurred. I had the privilege of sitting and listening to their meetings. And when we got to the point where the commission finalized their recommendations, one of the commission members offered to come and explain their reasoning and their recommendations to the legislature personally. And so he's here for this committee tonight, and he will be here at the legislature meeting to explain to the full legislature. So it gives me great pleasure to introduce Frank Beach.
I feel like I should clap.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I'm a little surprised that you didn't go through the rest of the propositions as the warm-up before the headliner, but that's fine. My name is Frank Beach. I was honored to be asked to serve on this committee, our commission. And I have my background, although it was varied. I retired in 2016. I'm from Dunkirk and did a lot of things and left and came back when I retired. Retired in 2016. I was the president and CEO of a national financial services corporation, and moved back to Dunkirk and retired. So, and did that. And I've served on several commissions. I'm actually president of the board of directors of Chautauqua Housing and Rehabilitation Corporation. And I'm on the board of directors for Rural Ministry. And I also chair the cable TV access channel. So I've cut down from 9 to 3. So we had a great group of people that had input and were part of this. Steve Abdella, do you know who the is? I don't know some of these people. Jay Gould, who I know, Vince, Sharon I got to meet, I didn't know before. Dan I know, and Greg Krause was also a member of this. And what we were charged with was to look at the salaries of elected officials from an objective view, and thanks to Deb. Deb was set upon every meeting. And I have a tendency to not talk a lot, just the opposite. And we charged her with getting a lot of information, a lot of detailed information, because we wanted to do, if we're going to do this, we're going to do it right, and we were going to put together a presentation that was data-driven, and we sought out, we looked at, we started with trying to look at counties statewide. And then we narrowed that down. Now, you guys all have this, I believe, or you had this information to review. So you saw what we did and how we approached it. There was no reason for us to do it subjectively and with any, because it didn't influence us or have anything to do with us one way or another. So what we did is we started in that format, and then in talking with Deb and in some of these meetings that we had, we realized that we needed to validate the information that we're trying to provide and the recommendations that we thought were viable. Well, we need to compare apples to apples. So what we did was pare that down till we got to, I think it was 14 counties.
14 comparable counties.
14 comparable counties that we reached out to, or Deb reached out to, and we had a myriad of different information to say how they compared financially with us. We looked at cost of living, we looked at county size, we looked at all these different aspects of it. Well, we didn't hear back from 14, we heard back from 9 that were going to share information with us. So then we pared it down to that and started putting that together. Is that the last sheet you have in that information boils down to those. Then we wanted to even become more finite if we were going to make a recommendation that we felt would be viable and an opportunity. So basically, we took that and then we went and pared it down to job title, and that mirrored the job titles and the descriptions of those jobs as so we could compare exactly. And when it came to the county executive, we got it down to 3 that had the same title and things like that. So, in doing this, the first thing that we wanted to do and that we broached was the fact that this group had not met for a decade. And we thought that seemed a little, with the way things go and the way costs, pricing, salaries, and all that change over an amount of time, we decided that seemed in a recommendation format to be a little bit too long. So as elected official salary review, we believe that the meetings should be set, and we are going to recommend that they're set every 4 years. Now, this is multifunctional in regards to that, because if, as you see when we go into the next portion of this, we do not believe that we should recommend, when it comes to salaries, when we found out what was being paid in all these other counties, we felt realistically that if you try to go like a 100% type thing, it ain't gonna it's just not gonna fly. You guys have a responsibility to the constituents, and that kind of would be a little bit too big of a bite. So, figuring to meet or have a commission once every 4 years, we could then expand and take what we believe is a valid recommendation now and pair that to additionally a little bit higher percentage in the next 4 years, another 4 years, whatever, so that we're taking it in smaller bites to get us where we really should be based on the information that we were provided. So that's basically number one. We decided that we would recommend that meetings be set every 4 years, okay, or the commission make a recommendation every 4 years. So it'll help to alleviate a large pay disparity, because then we'll be dealing more with the cost of living and all these things, consumer price index and all that, in a much more timely manner. Now, any questions on that? All right, number 2, the county, now we get into the specific, to the specificity of the job titles and what they are. County executive title should be increased in our recommendation by 50% of what it is, okay? Now, we have all of the backup detail for that and things, the corresponding data to support why we make this recommendation. Now, we looked closely at 14 of those, and then we pared it down to 9, and then for the county executive comparison, we decided best to only look at the comparative size counties that utilized a county executive title. Some have managers, some have different things like that, right? What do they have besides
Correct.
manager?
Administrator.
Administrator, manager, and things like that, that we didn't feel mirrored exactly what ours is and what we were trying to do. Now, from the 9, we broke that down to 3 comparable sized counties, okay? We have the attached information on that. So with doing that, if you look down, you have that form, you go to D, you'll see the 3 counties. The average salary of those 3 counties, $143,841 for the county executive, compared to ours of $111,420. Now, these are not counties that have more of anything than we do, and could be considered more poverty counties, as we are, and they don't have any exacting huge corporations or things like that could offset or provide more revenue than available. So our recommendation, though, being what it is, we believe that, like I said, we don't want to try to bite off more than we can chew at any one time. So we are recommending to apply a 50% increase, which would be the total amount of $16,210. Now, keep in mind, there is one little aspect of this. None of this would go into effect until January 1 of 2026. Okay? So we're not looking at something that you're doing to give him, your buddy, or yourselves, unless you earn that by being reelected or something like that. Does that make sense? Okay. County clerk, pretty much the same thing. So we don't need to go over that, but it's the same dynamic. Now, with the county clerk, though, we were able to assess it based on the 9 counties, because the county clerk's county clerk. All right? If I say anything wrong, let me know.
I'll let you know.
Yeah, I have no doubt. I've been on this commission. Anyway, the sheriff, the same thing, 50% based on the 9 counties. And now, county legislators. I fought this all the way. I mean, $9,000 in 1 year? What the heck? You know, 7,500 should be plenty. Anyway.
All the glory, all the glory.
Yeah, I mean, it's a status thing, that's all. It's what you're all about. Get you comfortable in those seats. All right. We did the same thing, and we recommend the same, the 50% with the legislators as well. When you look at realistically, and we're even, you know, I thought it probably could have been more, because if you look at the counties that we compared, you know, you see the numbers for the salaries, those include benefits. So now we didn't want to push too far. So the amount that we calculate would be an increase of $5,732. So that's basically where it is. Now, the one last thing that we talked about, and I kind of get into because dealing with my company, I had 57 branches in 17 states. We had 2,000 people that worked for me. And so we had to deal with this kind of stuff, including when we're looking at the financial services and mortgage lending and all that kind of stuff. We had dealt with consumer price index and all the variables that have to do with these kinds of things. So the last thing that we thought wise was that the county legislator title will be included in the annual CPI increase as described by the Chautauqua County Charter. So going forward, any increase in the consumer price index would be reflected by a percentage of increase, which would make sense. Now keep in mind, I mean, CPI, obviously if you know what CPI is, it's the average price of goods and services is tied to, and typically is inflation. But it could be deflation too, of course that's never gonna happen, but I'm just saying, there is that option. So, but the CPI can't be a negative because there's always cost to prices. Are always positive. But anyway, so that's basically what we thought, and that again wouldn't start till January of 26, as they all are. Now the only one that didn't is the sheriffs. The sheriffs wouldn't go into effect till January 27. So that's the only difference in that, and the sheriff's amount is 10,000. So that's what we did, and these people were great. I mean, we had great, and Pierre was phenomenal, just kind of moderating and making sure we stayed on course in that, because if you saw those names, some of them can kind of wane a little bit. But we tried to do that, and I'm honored to have been asked to come here and to do this. I don't get to do this kind of stuff much anymore, so it's kind of fun. So any questions or anything that, this is just a discussion, so if you have anything that,
Thank you for taking it on. It was needed.
yeah, I mean, I was kind of surprised when I got into it and started seeing what we were comparing ourselves to, and think, you know, I know we're the farthest county west. Well, that don't make us the last, you know?
Well.
You know, it's kind of, I mean, we're not the end of the tail or anything, so I was happy to do it. I think with a lot of Deb's help, because she did all the legwork. She found the county. She found the ones they were reporting to her. They were telling her this. She was getting the information. She was able to provide us with all the percentages of decrease and increase and all these other kinds of things. But like I said, when it comes to the recommendation for this or getting this approved, you guys do what you want. But we thought it was important to not try to push for more, even though it's probably justified, than we thought would be viable or able to get. We also wanted to make sure that the effective dates weren't like sooner than that could become subjective to some constituents or some things like that. We just wanted to make sure that whatever the recommendations are valid. And it's all data-driven. There's absolutely nothing beyond what is the actual fact of data in this kind of stuff, so.
I think what you've done here is fantastic, like the data-driven, there's no,
Yeah,
here it is.
I've learned, you know, I was in my other business for 30-some years, and, you know, you gotta have it's simple, you gotta have your ducks in a row.
Right,
Because or else, you know, you'll drown or they will, so.
and I'm glad it's not a reduction that you recommended, that's very nice.
Yeah, that was probably the biggest point of contention.
Yeah. And as we all know, this is gonna be a field day probably for the media, because how dare any elected official ever think they should get a raise, according to some.
Well, but there again, and
But doing the right thing
Yeah.
has to outweigh.
Exactly, and it's not just a willy-nilly thing. I mean, it's all, you can't dispute anything that we are recommending, because it deals in fact. There's no fantasy or anything involved in this, and that was really important. I think Pierre kind of led us down that path to make sure that whatever we did had the best chance, because it's real. I get it, and I get what media. I believe I deal with the media all the time, and I know it's they're the antagonists in the world are going to try to use it as fodder to dispute or as self-serving, but
Well, they have to do their job, and we have to do our job, and we
That's right.
commission you guys to do your job.
that's
So
right. And I think,
basically, at the end of the day, everybody's doing their job.
and I think we did. I mean, I
I do
really
too.
felt good, and I think I would have had some reservations about coming and telling you that this is what you ought to do, unless this is what you ought to do,
Right.
type of thing. Yes, Ms. Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Beach. I guess I wonder, because I did a little research on things like home listing, medium income household, and population, persons living in poverty, and the number of legislators. And I found that of those three other, I happen to be from Westchester County, which is right next to Putnam County. And so I know Putnam County a little bit, and I found some real, like their median home listing is 599,000, and our median home listing is 140,000. So I guess without going through different things, as I told you, I'm just wondering why those kinds of things weren't used. You know, because if you look at Putnam and Rensselaer, Chautauqua, Broome County, I looked at Cat County too, there's some real differences.
So when we looked at what we would consider as a comparable county, we went by population. We did in fact look at cost of living, among others. Population, number of legislators, trying to figure out what else, even down to specific department size within each county. When we decided, or when the committee decided to consider a comparable county by population, the population the range that we went by was 90,000 to 210,000. That was it. It was a minimum and maximum for the committee's analysis. Does that answer your question, or does it lead to more?
I guess it's, I think that you all did a tremendous amount of work, and I guess I look at these other variables and I think they're of some significance in terms of, you know, like in Putnam County, their poverty level is 6.3% and ours is 17.6%. You know, there's some very, you know, and Putnam is obviously the highest income level of these, you know, but even when you go to Rensselaer County, their poverty level is 11.2%. And if you look at the medium income, there's some significant differences. So, I mean, I think that you've done a tremendous amount of work. What I'd like to see, I don't know, since this is just a discussion, I'd like to see a compromise increase, not the 50% increase, because one, it sounds like one of the things that is recommended is to revisit it every 4 years and to have that consumer price index increase. So some of that stuff, as far as I can see, is somewhat built in. And I think I know, you know, certainly, I don't know how many years ago when you said about benefits that legislators used to get health insurance a long time ago. I don't know exactly when that was.
16 years ago.
16 years ago.
I never saw that. I keep on when it
Yeah,
was-
so
away the
so
year
I
before
know
I
there's
got
some
it. Oh my
differences,
gosh.
and I think the salary was the same. But so I'm not saying that what you have compiled is not without merit. I think it really truly is. You know, but I would like to see either, you know, half of that or some other compromise increase, especially if you start to look at it in a planful way of how you would then revisit it in 4 years. And the consumer price index is significant.
Yes. Well, and I think that's what we did. That's where the 50% came up. Was a compromise, because like I said, you're not gonna, I mean, that's nowhere near what these other counties are getting. These other counties get benefits on top of that. So we didn't feel that, like I said, it's a recommendation, but we didn't feel that the 50% seemed extraordinary based on the fact that that's still nowhere near. And there is nothing that says that in 4 years that there has to be another 50%. There don't have to be anything.
Right.
You know,
yeah.
that will depend on how much CPI has moved that needle to that point. So, but like I said, that's what we thought would be fair without being more than it should be. I mean, that's the bottom line.
Right, and I mean, there was quite a few really competent people who did this study, and I think that, you know, has a great deal of weight. I just wonder if that could be considered something like a compromise.
Well, I mean, I don't think we're gonna change our recommendation, but what the legislature does is what the legislature does. We're not an enforcement group or anything else, you know?
Yeah.
Although I know where you live. No,
I know.
Maybe you shouldn't have said that.
No.
No, I mean, I think it's great that you, I mean, how many hours did you put in? You must put in.
How many meetings do we have? And then, Deb put in a plethora of time. But, I don't know, Pierre, do we have 4?
I think it was 5 meetings.
5 meetings?
And Susan, I'd just like to,
It felt like, we had 5 meetings, but it felt like 50.
I'd just like to highlight, you know, you're suggesting a compromise, and Frank said it, but in the discussion, when they were coming down to their final recommendations, several of the commission members felt that we should move to the average. And the compromise, as Frank said, that was proposed was half the average increase. So there was a compromise, and not every commission member was happy with that, because several of them felt that the increases should be to the average. But they discussed and discussed and discussed and finally came to agreement on the 50%. That was the compromise.
That was the compromise.
Yes.
And realistically, you know, when you dismiss the fact that there are no benefits, I mean, what's the value of that?
We get business cards.
Oh, now we gotta go back and start this thing all over again.
Start over.
Every 2 years.
Now we gotta start
2
again.
years we get business cards, and 1 year the quality was so
Whether you want them or not.
deplorable.
Doggone it.
They couldn't use them 1 year, they're so cheap. But, Yeah, they're not really embossed or real fancy. There's no gold on them.
Well, okay, then the recommendation should be 49.873%.
I'm grateful we get business cards.
Yeah,
I didn't know we could get them once a term.
I think it's once a term. Pierre might know.
Is that true?
No, the clerk knows.
Oh, the clerk knows.
I got a box of them 14 years ago, and I think I've used 11 of them.
Some of us enjoy them more than others.
There's kind of like,
Well, you do,
I
obviously.
do.
I mean,
You
you-
got one.
Yeah, I do. I have it.
I'm gonna start bringing them.
Actually, it's sitting on my laptop at home. Huh,
Which one, for the county or the state?
For the county, it's the
County?
complaint line.
yeah.
Got a district.
Well, anyway, so that's, I mean, we felt realistically, I mean, you know, when you're $30,000 off a year and with no benefits for the executive, or the legislature, what
Yeah,
was
that
it,
would only apply to the
20,000, it was
legislature.
the average, and 9, and 20,000 with benefits versus 9 and none.
No, I hear you. I just
I get people
think
not
we
to
live
run by
in a
telling them
county.
what our salary is.
It's not inspiring.
No. Well, see, here too, and part of our discussion did have to do with finding quality people to participate, number one, and or to fill county executive, county clerk, finding these positions. You know, you hate to think of it, like you think everybody just wants to do this for the fame and glory. No, they don't. And so a lot of times you have to start thinking more, you're going to get more bang for your buck if that's what you're providing, more buck. You have to look at it from that aspect as well, which is what we kind of did too. But anyway, and I normally talked a lot.
I guess I have just 2 comments to make. One, we did this 4, 6, 8 years ago.
Had to be 10
It was
because
close to 10.
the commission didn't meet for nearly 10
It
years
happened
ago.
and it happened, and I don't remember ever,
I didn't hear any results.
but, so I'm thankful that it got to this point. I think this is outstanding.
Well, and like I said too, this is nothing that'll reflect on you guys being self-serving or anything else, because it doesn't start. So basically, when this would take effect, it would be something you would have had to have prepared them for or anything else, and decided to participate further, so.
And my first reaction to it, just because it's a discussion, and I'm the chairman, so I get to run the meeting and say whatever I want.
That's kind of the way I do things too. I feel like
I'm a little concerned. I appreciate it, but the cost of the CPI increase kind of makes me a little wiggy. Like, I would rather see just a set salary than this variable going forward. It's just me. It's just the discussion
it.
part.
I get
I'm
it.
not-
yeah, but it's.
I understand.
There is, but these increases are realized by others in the county.
No, I understand that,
And
but I
that's-
guess I'm just more of a, here it is.
When you think about it, you talk about 1%, 2%, 3% or something, you're talking about 37 cents, 48 cents, you're not
Right.
talking ridiculous amounts of money
Right.
in the first place. And so that's why we just thought that should be, the legislators should have the same benefit as described in the charter
Right.
for
In the charter.
that CPI.
Got it. That was just my.
Yeah,
first
oh,
reaction.
I get it, because you're dealing with an unknown.
Right.
But realistically, when it boils down to dollars and cents, you're looking at a 1.3% or a 2 point,
Right.
it's pennies, realistically.
Because personally, I do this because I want to do this. I do get paid to do it, and I'm not going to give back the money. I do accept the money that I get, but I don't do it for the money.
That's true, I know, but your time has value.
Oh, sure. Yeah, I'm not saying I'm against the increase.
I mean, and it's not a lot of
Yeah,
money
yeah.
for the amount of effort.
Since we're saying things, I'd like to add that we could also consider reducing the size of the legislature, which would also make it easier to raise salaries, so to say 11 or something like that.
Yeah, but the Salary Review Commission didn't have, that wasn't on the agenda.
I hear you.
So we did the best we could.
Right.
And I can't say enough for Deb, Pierre, whatever we needed, we got. We had time. It was ready for us when we got there, so we could review. We didn't waste time. There was dissension. I'll be honest with you. There were people that wanted things differently than what we came to as a final conclusion. They're just, and I don't know. Some of it to me didn't make sense. Well, I know, but we did agree, and we voted, and this is what we thought made the most sense at this point in time, and would provide the most value, and provide the security of it not starting next week, and being so that anybody that votes on it or decides that those recommendations are valid and true, that unless they perform and get themselves to a position to take advantage of that benefit, they won't. So.
And when the commission came to its final recommendation and voted, the vote was unanimous in favor of these recommendations.
Exactly. Exactly.
They came to consensus.
Yeah, that we did. So that's all.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Frank.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, if you like this show, come on back on the 24th. And we'll do it again. Good.
You have to be here. Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. It's just you.
All right. Okay, that moves us on to resolutions other. First one is compromise of disputed chargeback amount.
Good evening.
Welcome back.
Patrick Slagle, County Attorney. The resolution before you is to settle a dispute with a local municipality with the Fredonia Central School District. I believe some of you may have got a letter. Actually, I think, Susan, you got from Fredonia Business Office that sent a letter out.
Yes, yes.
So this isn't related to that topic.
Yeah, I thought it must be. And
essentially what-
Bob did too.
Yes, yeah. Essentially, what happened was there was a tax certification for some infrastructure. When that parcel was assigned a new number, the old number was not taken off, and so for many years there was taxes as if there were two parcels being taxed, two separate owners, and that wasn't the case. And so our county contacted Fredonia Central School and essentially said that they were overpaid by $85,000 and looked to take that money back for the county. This is over about a 20-year time period. Fredonia clearly objected to that and did not want to agree to withholding the $85,000. That's a hit to their budget all up at once. So they did retain counsel, and my office and legal counsel kind of went back and forth. Both had different theories of what law applied. If anyone knows anything about tax law, bless you, because it's not a favorite subject of anyone. And actually, the legal counsel on the other side is someone that our district and many counties throughout the state use. He's kind of the legal guru for tax law. So essentially, it came down to our position that we can charge back the full amount. Their position that you can't. You could tax a year, maybe up to 3 years. We kind of went back and forth through email, phone call, Zoom conference, and finally we came to an agreement, a tentative agreement, obviously subject to approval, that 6 years would be the amount that we would agree upon. And Fredonia is agreeable to that as well. And so that amount would be $36,318.71. And this is agreeable. We'll have a full legal settlement drafted between the two parties, subject to, if you approve this resolution, then we'd be able to enter into that agreement. But again, it's a compromise. It's not as much as this body could receive if we you know, held to and said we get the full 85,000, but in consideration, we also thought, you know, Fredonia was never gonna agree to just give us the full 85. I mean, they were gonna fight this because they felt, and based on some law, they, you know, they had a good argument. And so we looked at that and realized, well, if we decide to go to court over this, you know, by the time we pay legal fees, you know, we can end up paying more in legal fees than what we'd actually recoup for the full amount. So we feel strongly that this agreement to settle for 6 years is a very good settlement, and both parties, Fredonia's happy with it as well, and I think we're happy in our legal department. So this is our recommendation, is to authorize that settlement.
How many years did you figure it was?
I'm sorry, not
20.
20. I said 6 years.
But the original.
No, the original 85,000. Was it more than 6 years?
Yes.
Any idea how many?
We're looking at about
Second whereas.
Oh, is it in there? 17 years.
17 years. Yes. Sorry,
Okay.
2004 to 2000. Anyway, that's something.
Thank you,
Yes.
Pierre.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think I mean, I'm not a lawyer, obviously, but that the argument was about the actual length of time that you could go back and charge, and those were the different, and you may have already said that, those were the different legal arguments. I really appreciate the work that, you know, the county law department did on that in responding to that and
Thank
coming to a good compromise.
Thank you. Yeah, and that was the argument. You know, there's different provisions of tax laws, and you look at one provision that references another, and you know, the idea was, can you go back 3 years, and then there's you know, the ability to, you know, we thought another provision of the tax law actually was more controlling, that said you can just charge back forever, and so there was that back and forth, and it would have made good arguments for both sides. I don't think either of us, you know, we're making anything up, and you know, we're both coming up with case law that support both sides. And at the end of the day, you know, this is kind of the right decision. You know, it's treating our neighbor, you know, right. You know, we're not, you know, not giving up more than I think that's necessary. So yeah, it was.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been corrected, yes?
Correct. It's been corrected. Yes. So that won't. And you know, I mean, if it's something that can always pop up, you know, and unfortunately, as these transactions happen, you know, it could in the future, a similar situation could come up where another taxing jurisdiction, you know, we find that we've been overpaying them and we look to recoup, and then we'd get into that same kind of discussion. You know, we'd say, well, based on this provision, we'd see what they're, and each case is different, each set of facts is different, and, you know, so it's potential that in the future we come back to another similar situation where a taxing jurisdiction is, you know, has been overpaid, and we'd be looking to settle. You know, there's the arguments that, you know, you've had budget, the county has had budget based on what's paid out and what's received, and so to take a lump sum in this year based on money spread out over many years, you know, it hurts those districts more than it hurts the county. So that's an idea, but obviously anytime these issues arise, you know, we always tend to look for settlements, just because litigation is an unknown. We pay, there's a lot of money that goes into litigation, and it's sometimes wiser. I mean, sometimes you have to go through full litigation. I mean, that's why I exist, I guess. But you know, we'll always go forward if we think it's in the best interest of the county to go forward with litigation. But in this case, I definitely think it's in the best interest of the county to accept this settlement. It's a fair settlement.
Patrick, what about the town tax?
As of this point, we haven't had any contact from the town. I mean, obviously, any taxing jurisdiction would be able to contact the county should they feel that they've been overtaxed, undertaxed. Possibly they'd contact us, and we look to settle. You know, each taxing jurisdiction is different. The amounts that they were paid or underpaid, and so it wouldn't be, I think, advisable to do a global settlement, because there could be other factors that come into play that we just don't know at this point. So if the town, I'm not sure if they were overpaid, but should they contact, you know, the law office or the real property, then we'd have that discussion with them. Again, that could be something we'd bring to in the future. Again, always an eye towards doing, you know, what's right and working with them on that issue.
But wouldn't it be us finding the overpayment rather than the one
we would
overpaid?
Right, when we would find it, and when we'd contact them and let them know that the payments that we're gonna be saying, some is gonna be different. That's what happened in this situation.
So this is just exclusive to the school?
Correct, just for Durham Central School District.
Okay.
Yeah.
This particular one?
This particular one, correct. But again, again, I would anticipate that there could be potential other ones coming forward, the town possibly coming forward, and we would deal with it, obviously they would retain, counsel, or we would just have that conversation with them and see what's right in that situation.
Any other questions? Let's vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, our next resolution, reallocating salary grade for resource assistant in human resources. Are you in charge of human resources?
Yes, I am. Oh my gosh. Good evening, Debbie Mikowski, Director of Human Resources. So this proposed resolution, basically to reallocate the grade assigned to the title of Resource Assistant, parentheses, Human Resources. So this is, this title is only used by the HR department. Looking to change the grade from a 12 to a 14. Simply due to this individual has taken on increased responsibility as it relates to reporting and auditing. The tasks were originally handled by a more senior member of the HR department, so the upgrade is appropriate considering the increased level of responsibility. We did proactively budget for this in 2024, so there is no impact to the 2024 budget. As long as you approve,
Other
of
than
course.
what you've already done.
Correct. Correct.
Sorry. Questions, comments, concerns? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Our next proposed resolution, reallocating salary grade for communications technician trainee, communications technician, senior communications technician, and communications system coordinator.
That one's a mouthful. Debbie Mikowski, Director of Human Resources. So this proposed resolution is to reallocate the 4 titles in the communication field within the Sheriff's Department. Basically, the proposed upgrade would align the 4 titles to match their counterparts in the IT department. So it's Sheriff's Communications and all of their functions and responsibilities as it relates to emergency dispatch, radios, sheriff vehicle communication versus the IT department where their responsibility is countywide email, IT, phone services, computer access, etc. I can also state that the changes to the titles in the Sheriff's Department was also proactively budgeted. So there is no impact to the approved 2024 budget for the Sheriff's Department.
Makes sense to me. Any questions,
Yeah.
comments?
I have one question.
Mhm.
Are there 2 different unions involved?
No,
Okay, just, that was
No.
my question.
no, they were graded differently within CSEA 6300.
That's my only question.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's all I have under other. Does anybody have anything else under other?
I wanted to bring up something under other, the letter that we received with the report from the comptroller that we got on December 22nd or 23rd.
Okay,
I just wanted to ask some questions about, I just wanted to have a discussion about, ask the question, what that the legislature should be given some information about what happened, the background, what is the plan, and what is the prevention plan also. I guess those would be the three things. The reason I say that is because the key findings kept pointing out that we're responsible for general oversight of financial affairs. The legislature did not adopt realistic budgets, and I'm looking at all these things, and so I just wondered if, I didn't just wonder, what I'm asking is, can we have information as to what happened, what the plan is for correction and prevention in the future in relation to North County Water District? It sounded like there were some pretty, serious things. The other thing is, what has the county lost in terms of investment with the $1.4 million that they owe us? Kind of a full report. I'm asking for an oversight report. Is that possible?
Mr. Chairman, I think I can address most of those questions, Susan.
Okay.
The findings from the state controller audit were shared with us before the report came out.
Mm-hmm.
So, county finance director, county attorney, the legislature, finance, what's her title? Kathy Tampio, who assists the North County Water District, and the chairman of the district have been discussing these for some time. So when the report was received, we were not particularly surprised by what the report said. And so the state controller has given us 90 days to present a corrective action plan, which they have to approve. And so the clock has started ticking. So we have already circulated some proposals as to how we would address the recommendations in the state controller's report. And there's a couple of points that are a little more difficult than others. I mean, some of it is who should develop, review, and present the district budget to the legislature. I mean, okay, so the budget director and the chairman of the board for the North County, those things are pretty simple. They're straightforward. The two that are difficult are, one, how are we going to collect the past due revenue from the one customer of the North County Water District, which is CBI. And so that brings into question how the members of CBI, the municipalities, are going to repay that delinquency. So that's a difficult nut to crack. And the second one is develop a plan to repay the interfund loan between the general fund and the water district fund. And so the county finance director is setting up a meeting where we're going to get together with legal and finance and the chairman of the board and vice chairman of the board of the North County Water District and figure out how we're going to address those 2 points that are really a bit sticky.
Yeah.
So in terms of money that was lost, clearly the intention was that any delinquent payments would be accrued interest. So the county would receive interest on those. So we're not going to lose any money there. And the interfund loan would. Pardon? It's on the loan part, yes. So the county didn't lose any money there because what went out of the general fund, when it comes back, will have interest with it. So we're developing the corrective action plan.
Yeah.
Now, I don't believe it is necessarily legally required that the legislature approves this corrective action plan, But I'm gonna insist that this corrective action plan be done in time for the February meetings of the legislature, so we can review it in person and discuss it and approve it at the legislature meeting in February before it's due on the 23rd of March or whatever the date is. So we've got a lot of work to do in the next month to bring this corrective action plan to final form, but I'm committed to making that happen.
Okay, so, and it will come through committees and
Yes.
the explanations? 'Cause
Yes.
It was, yeah, because it sounded like there were, and I did talk to Dan Pecos last night, I called him and
Good.
talked to him, yeah. And he gave me a lot of information, as part of the North County Water District. And so anyway, there's a lot of things in the report that I have questions about, so it's just about, in the correction action plan, will those questions be answered?
That's the intent of the corrective action plan, is to prevent this from happening again. The corrective action plan is not gonna get into who shot John.
I don't think that's necessary, it's more about prevention, right?
Prevention,
Yeah.
exactly what it is. So, you know, you may have some questions as to how did this happen. The corrective action plan won't be dealing with that. The corrective action plan is gonna be, we do this, and this won't happen again.
Right. So basically, I mean, in some ways, it's a similar question, and how did it happen is not so much, and who did it, but like, is there a gap somewhere? So the answer would be, and so the gap of this, I mean, I'm just using an example, you know, and this will now be under the responsibility of someone.
Exactly.
And that's where I'm not interested in, you know, a whole punitive thing, it's more about,
Yeah, yes. Thank you. From my perspective, it's a lot more important that we put a plan in place so this gets under control and it doesn't happen again, than to go back and rehash the last 5 years as to what happened and didn't happen and who did what and who didn't do what and so forth. So
exactly.
we're focusing on the corrective action plan.
Good, sounds good.
Good.
Thank you.
Okay, any other? Get a motion to adjourn?
I'll do the break first.
Oh.
Sorry.
Lisa made a motion to adjourn,
I'll second.
seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Well, here's the pencil.
I'll stick it back in the drawer here.
Are you? Oh, do you? Circulating.